All right, welcome back to News Raw. We're going to start out with Politics Raw. One of the candidates for the Republican nomination for governor, Meg Whitman, stopped by to talk to us a little bit about the race for governor, the announcement of Jerry Brown running for governor, and her attacks on her fellow Republican, Steve Poizner. Mrs. Whitman, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about the latest news in the race for governor. Former governor, current Attorney General Jerry Brown throwing his hat into the ring. What's your response so far?
Well, I welcome him to the race. I'm glad he finally decided to jump in. And I look forward to a spirited debate. It's going to be a real contrast. If I am the Republican nominee, it will be a real contrast between a career politician and a career business person who has created jobs, met a payroll, knows how to run things efficiently, versus, a series of, I think, failed experiments and promises that didn't quite work out and bigger government and higher taxes. So the people of California will have a very clear choice.
Let's talk a little bit about what he said in his announcement, which was done, by the way, online and not in front of an audience, which is a new thing for the Attorney General. But as we know, he was a governor in the past, and he says that we have tried to put a novice in that office and it didn't work. Why do you think his experience from 40, 30 years ago as governor and his current experience as Attorney General, why do you think that wouldn't work again?
Well, I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for different results. And Jerry is a career politician that has been part of the political establishment for 40 years in California. And if the career politicians were doing such a great job, I don't think California would be in the fix that it's in. And if you look closely at his record as governor, he inherited a surplus. He left with $1 billion budget deficit. He had an unemployment rate that was almost double to then a record high of 11% when he left office. So it wasn't a great record. And I think I would contrast that with the results that I delivered in business, the ability to understand deeply the economy. Government does not create jobs. Government creates the conditions for small businesses to grow and thrive. And that's, I think, one of the most important issues facing California is who can revive this economy fastest.
I guess his argument, though, is that experience matters, that, we tried an inexperienced or inexperienced politician with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. It didn't turn out the way a lot of people wanted to. What's your response to that?
Well, he hasn't always said that. Back in 2003, he actually said he wasn't sure that experience mattered all that much. In fact, an outside perspective was going to be, actually what was in order here. So Jerry's been on both sides of that issue. And I got to tell you, given the economic situation facing California, the third or fourth highest unemployment rate in the country, an infrastructure built for a population half our size, a K-12 education system that is performing near the bottom of the barrel, I think an outside perspective with a business background will be absolutely essential to turn this state around. California is a turnaround, and that takes strong leadership and a different approach.
You talk about your experience in the business world. You're obviously the former CEO of eBay. California is not necessarily business, it's a state. How would you handle it differently because it is a government agency or governmental institution and not a business?
Well, it is a government. It will never be a business, and it shouldn't be. But I think it needs a healthy dose of leadership and discipline. And here's the approach I want to take. I want to focus on three things. If you go to Sacramento and try to do too many things, you'll be stymied at every turn. So I want to focus on creating and keeping jobs in California, cutting government spending and making it more efficient, and fixing our K-12 education system. And the way we're going to get things done in Sacramento is through that focus. The appointments process is incredibly important. I did not run eBay by myself. I won't govern California by myself. Those 3,000 appointments that the governor makes needs to be the right people in the right job at the right time on the governor's agenda. And then the governor's got to work with the legislature, but the legislature has to work with the governor because you've got line item veto in California. And in the end, this is a tough job. You've got to have a core set of values. You've got to have what I call a spine of steel, because I think this is going to be very tough. And while you are taking on the education establishment, while you're trying to make California more business friendly, I think you're going to, there are a lot of people who aren't going to be happy with you. So you have to be tough as nails and have a proven track record of delivering the results.
So can a tough governor really make a difference when you're dealing with what likely will be, once again, a Democratic-led legislature, and not only a Democratic-led legislature, but really a legislature that is at the extremes of both ideologies. Both the Republicans are fairly conservative, both the Democrats are fairly liberal. How can you change that as governor?
Yeah. Well, the first, as I said, is let's stop the bill factory that is California. You know, last year the governor signed into legislation almost 700 pieces of legislation. Virtually none of it was on point to the crisis we face. So I want to veto virtually all new legislation. Obviously, exceptions would be made for public safety or natural disaster. But let's focus the legislature, Democrats and Republicans, on fixing the problems that Californians are desperately concerned about. So Republicans and Democrats may have a different point of view on how to get the economy going or cut government spending, but at least we'll be working on the same problem. And I think we can bring people together through common sense solutions. And, you know, in the end, this is about leadership. This is about creating a vision of what is possible. This is inspiring people to work together on the problems that most concern Californians. And you know, the legislature isn't very popular right now. I think we're down to a 14% approval rating for the legislature. Californians are crying for a different approach.
Talk to us about how you'll bridge that gap, how you will bring folks together. Is it possible?
I think it is possible. You know, the next governor of California has to move to Sacramento. You've got to know every assembly person by name, every state senator by name, and you've got to say, who wants to be on the jobs team? You know, every district in California needs more jobs. Who wants to be on the education team? I don't know very many citizens in any part of California that are entirely happy with their education program. So let's work on the things that make the most difference to Californians. And then the governor's going to have to stand up and be counted, because you have to veto everything that isn't on that focused agenda. And in the end, it is about leadership. It's about bringing Californians, you know, into the process and making sure that we stay focused on the things that matter most. You know, I think Californians have a crisis of confidence right now. They need to know that the government can get something done. So let's set it up and knock it down. Let's fix the business climate. You know, we are bleeding jobs to Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Texas. That has to stop. We've got to reduce regulation, we've got to cut taxes, and we have to be, once again, the very best place to start and grow a business. And, you know, I've traveled now all over the state, and my view is 80% of Californians think that is absolutely the right direction. So let's go forward with that and you know, actually create a better business climate, and that will give Californians confidence that the legislature and the governor can actually lead.
These last couple of minutes here, I want to talk again about your competitors so far in the race. Let's go back to Jerry Brown. One last question about him. You mentioned his experience as governor, what, 20, 30, 40 years ago, a long time ago. Is it fair to bring up that since it was such a long time ago?
Sure. I mean, he's running on experience, right? He's running on that he knows how Sacramento works, and he's done it all before. So I think it's absolutely fair to look at his record not only as governor, but as the mayor of Oakland, which, you know, also had some issues around it. I mean, any problem in Oakland, Jerry's first reaction was to raise taxes. We can't do that anymore. We have to run the government more efficiently. The first knee-jerk reaction to any problem cannot be more money. It has to be, how do we do this better, more efficiently? How do we stand up and take accountability for results?
And lastly, let's talk about your competitor in the race for the Republican nomination, Steve Poizner. If you're watching TV in Los Angeles, you've seen your ads attacking Steve Poizner for the better part of the last week or so. And Ms. Whitman, I guess there was talk initially that there was some sort of backroom effort to get him out of the race. Is this a response to him not leaving?
No, this is a response to his $16 million that he was very clear he was going to spend against me in negative attack ads in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the campaign. And I think it's to the benefit of all Californians to extend that time of debate. There are very clear differences between myself and Steve. Let's get those issues out on the table. Let's start discussing them. And so that's why we went up with the issue ads.
All right, Meg Whitman, former CEO of eBay, candidate for the Republican nomination for governor. Ms. Whitman, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.